Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I am grateful. I attended a lunch given by a gentleman from McKinsey, who is an urbanization city planner specialist. And he made this presentation and he said, look, the world is much more volatile than it ever was before. And you can see from the image that he has a point. It was a pleasure meeting Ivan Menezes, the CEO of Diageo, again. He said many things. I insisted on taking a photograph with him, which was fun, and with Charles. And if there was one drink I could take to a desert island, I would take Johnny Walker Black Label, he said. And indeed, it's a very nice drink. I had quite a few blue labels and had to have a lion this morning. Nassim Taleb, the world we live in is vastly different from the world we think we live in. Just something to consider. Political reflections. Obama would veto any bill that would undermine Iran nuclear talks, the White House has announced. Of course, I wrote that piece in October 2013 about this rapprochement, the two Husseins, and played with Ai Weiwei's What's in a Name. Nepal earthquake, miracle 15-year-old boy pulled from rubble alive after 5 days trapped in Kathmandu. Really is a miracle. This photograph was published by The Independent. Nepal earthquake, amid all the sadness and death, the talk is of hope and rebirth. And you'll see what I mean when you look at the image that was published. BBC is saying that Burundi's government has blocked Twitter, Facebook and WhatsApp, making it harder for protesters to coordinate. There was a lot of content coming out of there, which is, when I went to look this morning, has just disappeared. And AFP tweeted this photograph of the protests on April the 28th, and Pierre Nkurunziza, President Pierre Nkurunziza, is in fact on Twitter actually. And one of his tweets, he published this photograph of himself, and I'll put that up. International markets, currency markets, the euro is just below 112, having got to just below 112.50 earlier this morning. Dollar index down sharply, 94.83. Japanese yen 118.90. The Swissy, when I looked last, 0.9348. Pound 154.22. Aussie has had an interesting move. It's fallen quite sharply to 79.20 last. India rupee 63.695, South Korean won 1074.63, the Rial 295.90, Egyptian pound 762.80, and the South African rand is at 11.8057. Now, dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. We broke through important support levels. The US economy grew at only 0.2% in the first quarter, which is a massive miss. The market was expecting a lowered number of 1%. So we got a huge move in the euro. I'll put up a 3-month chart, you can see that. And of course, Nanex, quite a move in currencies in the last 30 minutes. Euro up significantly. I'll put up that image you tweeted. Commodity markets, gold was last trading at 12.03. It's not trading with that much vigor given the currency move. It's sort of running out of steam. Crude oil had a huge move yesterday. Last time I checked was above $59. Let's see if we can hold it in here. But this is heady territory now, and I would have thought we'd see some of the hedges now show their face. The ruble headed for its best month since at least 1993, extending a world-beating rally. The currency has appreciated 13.6% in April, the strongest performance amongst all peers tracked by Bloomberg. Almost 2/3 of economists surveyed by Bloomberg predict the central bank will cut its benchmark borrowing rate by 100 basis points to 13% today. And I remember when I was looking at P/E ratio of about 3.5, there was a very strong case for making an investment, but then the currency moved very dramatically. You'll remember that the currency went up, I think, as high as 80. when the sanctions were biting and the market had become very skittish. Middle Eastern demand for gold fell 23% in 2014, the biggest drop in at least 4 years, data from Metals Focus, a London-based research firm, shows. Russian visitors to Dubai fell 36% in February. We are still surviving, but everyone is worried about the future. He said a kilogram of gold in Dubai this month costs 20 cents an ounce below the London spot price, a sign of weak demand for the metal, compared with a premium of $1.50 in 2013. The decline in Dubai's gold market is temporary, according to Mohammed Al-Ashrafi, who runs 5 stores in the souk, as an owner of Sama Al-Khalij Gold and Jewelry Trading LLC. Things are going to pick up again, Al-Ashrafi said. The market in the region goes quiet from time to time, but it will never die. I think he's very right. I put up a photograph of Dubai in the afternoon that I took when I was visiting, I think 2 visits ago. Sub-Saharan Africa, China comes to Djibouti, why Washington should be worried. This is an article in Foreign Affairs. United States investment in Djibouti amounts to more than $70 million per year, including economic aid, is money well spent. Washington needs Djibouti, and Goulet knows that all too well. France, Germany and Japan have also handed over tens of millions of dollars to the country for the right to use its strategic real estate. And lately China has gotten in on the act too, not only for economic reasons, but also driven by apparent security considerations. Money talks, especially in small and underdeveloped states run by authoritarian governments such as Djibouti. And soon Beijing, not Washington, may have the strongest voice. I don't think that's going to happen, do you? Beijing's interest in Africa is immense. Bilateral trade between China and the continent already exceeds $200 billion, far above Africa's commerce with the European Union or the United States. In addition, China has long sought to strengthen its ground-level influence in places it considers strategic choke points, and as such it now has economic, political and military deals with a number of African states, including Algeria, and other countries rich in energy resources, including Ethiopia and Nigeria. Djibouti recently joined this list, including a security and defense agreement with Beijing in early 2014. Chinese official responsible for negotiating and presumably executing the deal was Defense Minister Chen Wanquan, the person behind his country's increasingly assertive conduct in the South China Sea. Washington has protested against the China-Djibouti pact and expressed concern over China's plans to build a military base in the Obok region, but to no avail. That's hardly surprising in light of the huge economic package that Beijing is offering. Goulet. In the run-up to the deal, China Merchant Holdings purchased a large stake in the country's vital port of Djibouti, spending $185 million. So basically, that's very much America's backyard. And China also agreed a $2 billion infrastructure deal with Equatorial Guinea. The agreement was signed on Tuesday following a meeting in Beijing between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Equatorial Guinea President Teodoro Obiang Nguema, who I think has served as president for more than 30 years. South African all-share closed above the 55,000 level twice, but has now fallen below it again, but remains up 11.1% year to date, and has really put in a stellar performance. Dollar rand, as I said, 1182.73. Egyptian pound, 762.80. Egyptian stock market is down now 3.82% year to date. The Nigerian all shares up 1.17% year to date. Africa Finance Corporation, Andrew Ali is the CEO and a friend, debuted a $750 million Eurobond and saw heavy demand. 4.375% coupon attracted $4.7 billion of bids. It's a Nigerian-based development institution in which 7 West African states, including Nigeria and Ghana, own a 46% stake. AFC said the notes will be the first issue under a $3 billion global medium-term note program. The AFC said it would use the proceeds of the dollar bond for financing projects and to repay all outstanding amounts under its existing short-term facility. The Ghana Stock Exchange is plus 0.82% year to date. Of course, they've now signed the agreement with the IMF, and I think that will provide support. Coming to Kenya, Kenya crackdown on Al-Shebaab militants threatens to backfire. This is Katrina Manson in the Financial Times. In the 3 weeks since the deadliest attack yet by Al-Shebaab on Kenyan soil, authorities in Nairobi have frozen bank accounts of 86 Muslim entities, stopped the local operations of Somali money transfer companies, and threatened to oust 350,000 refugees. Closing down these remittance accounts, I think, has weighed on the shilling big time. There are signs that its heavy-handed crackdown has backfired. The very same people who are crucial to cooperation over counter-terrorism are being targeted, says Khalef Khalifa, the chairman at the Muslims for Human Rights, whose office was raided last week. We've been treated like second-class citizens. The whole community has been condemned as terrorists, he says. Every time you want to cooperate with the government, they treat us like an enemy. It's very difficult for any Muslim now, he says. His comments get to the heart of the dilemma Nairobi faces. Authorities there believe Kenyans led and financed homegrown. And in a number of encounters when I've sort of referred to this problem, there's been a genuine sort of consternation at what's happened. People saying, suddenly our children disappear, they come back, we don't know who they are, who they've been with. Al-Shebaab is headquartered in neighbouring Somalia. It increasingly targets Kenya and relies on Kenyan membership. Some 5 million Somalis in Kenya. In an attempt to stem terrorism that President Kenyatta says is deeply embedded in our communities. This month, armed security officials raided the offices of 2 human rights groups that regularly defend Muslims, including Muhuri. Armed Kenyan officials also raided the offices of Haki Africa, another rights group that says it has documented the death or disappearance of 51 Muslim Kenyans at the hands of security officials. This has been another issue. There's been a shoot-to-kill policy. Matt Bryden, an Al-Shebaab expert based in Kenya, says the government needs a more sophisticated and calibrated set of responses, and I think he's very right. If it is to stem the appeal of violent Islamism, he says that while some faith-based organizations in Kenya may be vulnerable to exploitation by religious extremists, the Kenyan government should strike at individual extremists rather than entire institutions. That's really an important point. Al-Shebaab no longer has a clearly Somali identity. This is now a Kenyan problem, says Mr. Bryden, adding that more than 1,000 Kenyan Muslims are thought to have crossed to Somalia to join the group in the past 8 years. Recognizing the domestic threat is the first realization, but now the government is grappling with what to do about it. If it is mishandled, it could pose an existential threat to Kenya. Right. I think we need to be better coordinated, forego those big dragnet exercises which alienate entire communities, and reach out to our partners for help at this time. The Kenya shilling remains on the back foot. The Nairobi All-Share remains positive for the year and actually popped 0.38% higher yesterday. Base Resources has denied State Senate's tax underpaying claim. The Australian firm, which is currently mining zircon, ilmenite and rutile in Kwale, was responding to statements made in the Senate to the effect that the government was getting a raw deal from the firm. Lands and Natural Resources Committee Chairman Lenny Kivitu said that the 2.4 billion shilling tax refund from the Treasury is unjustifiably large when compared with the royalties that the company has paid since it began exporting from the mine in 2014. The refund is on VAT incurred during the construction of the mine. In a statement, Base Resources said the committee did not take into account the 26 billion shillings spent on constructing the mine. Since the start of mining operations, Base has paid 226 million in royalties to the government via the Ministry of Mining. Without the significant capital investment at which point the VAT refund claim was accrued, Base would not be in a position to make a meaningful and significant contribution to the Kenyan economy. The firm expects to add 23 billion shillings to government coffers over its 11-year lifespan. Base has previously said that it needs the VAT refund by June, when it is expected to begin paying 20 billion shillings in loans borrow to partly finance the Kwale Mineral Sands project. So they have a point, and it's a fair one, and it's going to be important how it's actually handled going forward. Tomorrow's a holiday here in Nairobi, Labor Day. I look forward to it, and therefore will excuse myself and thank you once more for stopping by.